Welcome everyone. My name is Maurice, head of digital transformation at Cribos, and sitting across from me, looking worried already about the budget, is Michael, our senior partner and resident CFO. Welcome, Michael. So today we're going to discuss a lot about FinTech and how every company actually becomes a FinTech technology company. So if we just talk about that topic today, like what is the reason why you believe so deeply in that every company becomes a technology and financial technology company?
I've been in fintech for over 15 years now. Starting in the cowboy days back in 2008, what we've seen is a massive shift towards e-com over the past decades. I think that's number one. And with that massive shift became a massive increase in the amount of online payments. And the cost of online payments are becoming more important by the day, especially in industries, retail, specifically fast fashion, but also electronics, ticketing. Margins are super thin. So if you're able to push down your cost of payments, that has a direct bottom line impact on your margin. That's on the one hand. I think the second part is, and I'm going to use a bit of an umbrella term here, which you will enjoy because you're the expert there, marketing.
Love them.
Right?
Yes.
In order to message appropriately, in order to communicate with your potential customers, you need data. You need data points to make sure that your message resonates and hits the right note. And so you see on the one hand, a tremendous amount of focus on payments, and the other hand, a tremendous amount of focus on data. And that together means that whether companies want to or not, they're doing something with fintech.
Yeah, absolutely. So today's thesis is actually very simple. Huh? You have to become that technology company to own your customer and really revolve around that ecosystem. And we always call it the ecosystem play inside of the organization. And you really have to become a financial technology company to actually own your margin. Is that correct?
I think so. So one of the things that we've seen traditionally is that there was a lot of parties in between. So let's take payments as a specific. You would have a company providing the gateway to the payment method. You had the payment provider processing the payment method and the acquirer who then received it from the payment provider. And it was a very big circle and everybody was taking the margin in between. That's why you see the very large companies have a fintech company in them. Let's use two specific examples. Amazon is a financial institution.
Yeah.
Uber is a financial institution, right? And there's many more examples of that, of those companies, those large e-commerce platforms, those large companies with high transactional online volume, in order to make sure that they're actually increasing their margin, they become their own financial technology company.
Yeah, so basically if they own what they do on the technology and the financial side, they can be making more margin. But also if we look at like the total landscape, right, we see that pivotal shift also. If you're just talking about Amazon, we also spoke about Domino's Pizza, for example. What do you think is like? What do you think is like the big? What are the biggest opportunities for companies? Because again, I believe also in this, every company becomes a technology and a financial technology company. What are like the biggest opportunities that you see? Because you are more as a resident CFO, you've been in more board meetings than I've been, at least only the board meetings with the clients. Yeah, a few. And what are the biggest opportunities, the biggest gaps that you see? Because I see that, in my opinion, the biggest problem in those boardrooms is that they see the IT and also the financial technology as the cost center. But if we would talk like to our clients and also potential clients, but also the listeners, it's like what are the things that we can give away to them that they can turn those pain points into their biggest advantages if we're talking about the financial technology aspect of the business?
I think the biggest advantages, I would probably call out three. One of them is to make sure that your platform, your technology allows you to fully own your customer relation on the one hand. The second part is that your platform allows to capture as much of the transaction in the payment chain as possible, so that you play an important role in fulfilling the transaction. So that's the second part. And the third part is capturing that data effectively into your underlying system so that you really truly know what's going on in your business. And when I say truly know what's going on in your business, I'm not talking about once a month looking back in a month before to see what happened. It
No,
needs
you
to
want in
be
real
in
time,
real
right?
time.
Yeah.
Whenever I want to have a snapshot of my business, I can press a button and I see my core metrics popping up. Those are going to be, in my opinion, again, I'm looking at from a financial, from a risk perspective, bringing it to my board. Those would be the three most important things that I would highlight why you need to consider making that investment. Because the challenge with these projects, as you know, Maurice, it's always that the costs are going to come ahead of the benefit. So if you don't have a very clear, articulate picture of the benefit, you're never going to be able to justify the cost.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think it also goes deeper than that, right? I mean, I think the biggest the problem in those boardrooms is that they actually don't look at it from an ROI perspective, right? If you only look at it as a cost center and you don't think about the opportunity cost, for example, or the return on investment that you could get. If you take, for example, Shopify, they don't make most of their money anymore on the subscription fee of the platform. They make it on the payment side. And I think Shopify is a good example of analyzing the opportunities, not only from a cost perspective, but really from an ROI perspective, right? And also thinking of making that ecosystem play that I'm a big fan of. And yeah, you're also a big fan of that. Like, how can you really become the dominant player in someone's ecosystem? For example, the e-commerce merchants, and give them more added value that they are also going to stay with you, right? Because you give them added value, you give them added services, and that's also one of the primary reasons that they're going to stay with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think before going into that, I think one of the challenges has been, especially when we go back a few years, is that people wanted to buy instead of build because they think that buying is easier than building. The challenge with buying is that it typically solves a shorter term problem that you have, and it will still take a considerable amount of time and money to get that short term solution. Whereas if you build, especially when what you are sourcing is an integral part of what you offer to your clients, an integral part of your product, i.e., your core, you should always consider building. Because it's going to limit your ability to scale. It's going to limit your ability to grow your margins if you're not in full control of your core.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Would you have like any kind of example if you talk to like a buy or build analysis, like how as a company you could apply, a framework like that to analyze that?
Yeah, I used a very simple measure of thumb is that if the functionality, if the technology that I'm sourcing has a direct correlation with the product that I'm delivering to my customer, it's core. So what I mean with that, reconciliation is core. Processing the payment is core. Providing dashboarding to my clients is core. If I have an internal tool to manage my HR, that's not core. My financial administration, that's not core if it doesn't contain client data, right? So it's again, if the functionality touches my ability to deliver my product to my customer, it's core. And it sounds simplistic, but sometimes you need to make it simplistic to ensure that it's not arbitrary.
Yeah, because you also want to make a big difference in the market, right, compared to your competitors.
Yeah.
It also
And if
has to
you
make sense to
are
your business model.
a collection of bolt-on external tools, you're not going to be a market leader. You
Yeah,
can't be.
yeah. I
And you
think
see
that's
that
one of the
successful
frameworks.
technology companies are the ones that have an ability to not only build it themselves, but build it themselves well.
Yeah, maybe even better than the already established players, right? That's
Yeah.
also one of
Yeah.
the advantages when you can build it. You build it yourself. you can build it on top of the knowledge of all the lessons, the failures, and the successes from the incumbents.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that gives a big benefit, and that's also one of the things that you can leverage out. Is one of the things. So how can you leverage what's already there, and how can you take that knowledge and really come with something very competitive? I mean, I love the example that we just gave about Shopify, right? How did they make that play, and how did they turn themselves into more of a financial technology company instead of just a technology company, right?
Now, I think Shopify is a very good example because, again, I think they realized relatively quickly that their ability to really scale their revenue and grow their margins, they would not succeed if they would simply continue with the business model that they were operating, right?
Yeah.
And this is the part where you need to be constantly aware that what works well today might not work well tomorrow. So when you're looking at some of the most successful fintech companies, specifically, I will name a Dutch example that we all know and love, Adyen. They grew their business model. What do I mean with that? They started as a payment provider, then they became an acquirer, then they became a bank, then they became globally licensed, right? And they didn't do this in 12 months or 24 months. Now, they did this over a period of 15 years, but they were continuously expanding on their capabilities, supported by a strong technical core. Now, they've executed it very well, but there's other examples in the market. You name Shopify, I name Adyen, where you see that those companies that get it right, they outperform their peers.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point for today. So I think let's wrap it up this time with something actionable, Michael. So what is the one thing a CEO needs to look at today to know if they're failing this pivot?
I think the key thing is whether your tech teams have the ambition and the capability to build those core that core functionality themselves. At the moment you're talking to your CTO and your CTO says, well, I'm going to look at buying, I'm going to look at that tool, you're probably having the wrong conversation. The right conversation, if this is core to our ability to deliver our product to our customer, we need to have a vision on it ourselves. And for a CEO, this is not that easy because they typically want to trust the judgment of their team. But in this case, you need to be very mindful that if you're not in control of what you deliver, you have a problem.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. Yeah, my advice would be to the builders and the CTOs, stop building features and really start building an ecosystem. And if
Yeah,
your code doesn't help to own the data, own the money, control, delete it. Don't build a better form, but build a better wallet, better ecosystem.
fully agree.